Yeah, you look all right.
Do I?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah,
That's the first compliment I've had in a long time.
You're dead sexy, Ryan.
Oh, thanks, Steve.
Welcome to AT Banter, the podcast where we discuss anything and everything regarding the world of assistive technology. With our hosts, Steve Barkley, Rob Minot, and Ryan Fleury. Now, let's banter.
Welcome to AT Banter. I am not Rob Minot. I am Steve Barkley. Rob is off on vacation. And I am joined today with that guy over there, Mr.
Ryan Fleury.
Yay.
Yay.
And our special guest star joining us today is
Mike Lonergan.
Mike Lonergan from BC Blind Sports.
Glad he got his last name right because I wasn't sure.
That's common.
That's good to have you here, Mike. Thanks for coming.
No problem. My pleasure.
Let me see. What are we talking about
Let's
today?
talk about who Mike is and what Mike does.
Okay, Mike, who are you? What do you do?
Tell us what you do.
What I do, I'm Mike Lonergan. I am the program director for BC Blind Sports and Recreation Association, and I do a little bit of everything. We're a nonprofit sports organization. We do a lot with a whole variety of sports and activities, some of it at the high performance level, right down to the developmental stages of kids who are low vision or blind, and getting them involved in sports, working right on up through the age groups to people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s who are taking part in some kind of physical activity, and we're trying to help them take part in a meaningful way.
So how do people typically get referred to you?
We get them in a lot of different ways. Part of my job is to go out into the school system and liaise with the teachers of the visually impaired. They're a big partner with us. So once someone's in the school system, we make contact with them and their teachers, and what we try and do is help make sure those kids have a chance to take part in physical activity, help develop their physical literacy. So that contact's through the school system, and that's, everybody's in school, and in the system in BC, they're all in the public school system for the most part. There's not a particularly a school for the blind, as there was many years ago. So they could be anywhere in the province, mixed in any class in an inclusion model. So a lot of the teachers have never had experience with someone who's blind, let alone experience with someone who's blind or low vision taking part in PE, for instance. So one of the jobs I have is to go out and help modify programs, introduce sports, introduce modified equipment or adapted equipment, so those kids have a chance to take part in sport and activity. Maybe it's not even competition, just take part in physical activity in a way that helps them, makes them have a positive experience at it, and so they actually want to go on in the future and do things. It's a bit of a selfish thing. We want them for our teams as they get older. And it's the more physical literacy you develop when you're younger, the better. I mean, every kid learns to throw a ball, go for a run. Kids who are blind to low vision, that could be an issue. It takes a little bit longer, a lot more work. So we're trying to shorten that path for them. So when they come to us when they're in their 20 or 30 and they want to take part in a sport, they already have the skills and some of the physical literacy to take part in a sport in a way that's fun and that's not discouraging for them. So that's how we meet a lot of our clients and the people we work with. We, of course, get other people who are referred to us through the CNIB or any of the other blind organizations out there. Sometimes it's this through someone seeing something in the paper about one of our athletes. So lots of different ways to get people referred to us, but we'll take them through any door they come. Quite happy to do that.
When you talk about modifying a program for a gym class, what sort of modifications would you do?
The thing is, it really depends on the vision that the child has. If a teacher is lucky and gets a blind student, someone who's born with no vision, they've been blind since birth, a congenital blindness, they're much different than someone who's lost their vision through illness or an accident. And what that child knew and had already experienced really impacts what they do in PE. So in a class, it might be showing what kind of equipment that child might see something. Maybe they see certain colors better. Maybe the background in the gym is such that the ball can't be seen. Maybe we just change the color of the ball. So sometimes the modifications are just specific to that individual. That's the difference from a lot of disabilities. Our modifications are really individual, and sometimes we really have to work at finding what works for that student or that child. Sometimes it's introducing games that are easier for them to play, and also something that they can include their fellow classmates in. There are things we can do to make sure everyone's kind of involved, modifying their rules a little bit. Maybe it's just adding sound to a ball, and that maybe is enough for that child to take part in a sort of a meaningful way.
Even if you add sound to a dodgeball, it's still going to suck.
Well, that's you play goalball. I mean, people are things happen, of course.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to get bumped and knocked down, because that's going to happen to everybody. We want to make sure it's safe, and that they're not discouraged and that they want to come out and do it again. Sometimes it takes a lot of tries to get someone who's low vision or blind. It takes a lot of tries to give them enough information, or for them to absorb enough information that they can go out and do it and have fun. I can go watch a golf game and decide pretty quickly whether I want to play or not. If you have no vision, it takes a lot of pieces. There's a lot of learning to do, and so you have to be patient and really introduce all the facets of that activity. And then the person can make that decision whether they actually like it or not. Not everybody likes everything. That's pretty normal. So we just want to make it positive for them, that they at least have a chance to try it. And in the future, maybe they'll come back to it. Things like hockey and skating, right? Making sure that the skating experience is positive. So when they're older, maybe they will play hockey with their friends.
Right.
So you talked about competitive sports. What sort of competitive sports are out there for blind and visually impaired people who want to get involved in a more structured sports program?
There are a lot of, almost every sport out there can have an adaptation that'll suit someone who's blind or low vision. There's a basic, like track and field, of course, swimming, cycling. We have cycling. We adapt cycling with a tandem bike, right? So there's two people in the bike. And there's competitions at every level for them. Other sports like lawn bowling for the older crowd, we have adaptations that make that a meaningful opportunity for them. We even have a national championships in a couple of weeks being held here in Ladner. So there's competition for those people out there in almost every sport. Some sports are difficult, of course, like basketball, badminton, tennis. The adaptations there are pretty severe, and so sometimes it's a little harder to get them involved in something. Things like dragon boating, that's a big sport. We have 5 different teams around the province who are taking part in competitions. And really, it's as they're getting in a boat with a few sighted paddlers and taking part in a competition just like the rest of the world. So sometimes adaptations are just providing an opportunity that they know is safe for them to take part in. And part of that's getting people to a competition. Most of our clients and athletes don't drive, so it's really, making sure that it's an accessible place for them to take part.
I remember dragon boating against a blind dragon boating team.
Yep.
They kicked our ass.
Yeah, we have dragon boaters on regular teams too. So they can go out on a regular team of their friends, all sighted, but they still have the skills that, we can adapt things so they have the skills to take part. But it's nice to have a group of people who have similar disabilities in this case, because in the end of it, sport and activities it should be fun, and it should be with your friends, and having a peer group take part in an activity like that's kind of fun, right? You do all those regular things.
Absolutely.
So do you guys do fundraising then to make the modifications to your different sports paraphernalia, balls?
Yeah, we do have fundraising. Fundraising, we're lucky in BC. We have pretty good support from the government for our sport, our competitive sport side, because we're a provincial sport organization under the umbrella of VIA Sport. We get some funding to help support our athletes who are taking part in things like the Paralympics or provincial championships, national championships, different competitions. There's one support stream from that. And we do have some good support from gaming through our longtime association with it. We get a lot of support for that. Really helps support that recreational aspect, and helps people, help support some of those sports that need a little bit of extra work in terms of equipment. Some of the adapted equipment is expensive. A tandem bike is not cheap. Any bike's not cheap, but a tandem bike can be really expensive. So there are some things like that we get funding, and we have regular telemarketing type things and donations and foundation support for a lot of our different activities and things that we're trying to do.
So how many members make up BC Blind Sports?
It varies well into 200 or 300
Wow.
pretty active members. We have a lot of supporting members. We have not only athletes, or what we classify as athletes, but they're the ones that take part in activities, but we have supporting members. So that's someone who's helping, like the other dragon boaters, the sighted dragon boaters, or the pilot on the bike and the tandem bike. They're supporting members. It might be the director for lawn bowling or the people helping curling. We have those supporting membership as well. So there's a lot of people out there. I mean, for every single athlete, there's probably 2 supporting members.
Right. So does each province have its own BC Blind Sports type association?
There are blind sports associations across the country. Almost every province has an active one. Some of them are much more active than others. BC is actually, we have 5 employees at the moment in BC, and there's probably not even 5 full-time employees in the rest of the country. So we're ahead of and always have been ahead of the curve in that sense, which we have good funding, so that helps support our employees. The rest of the country is a bit different. Every province has their own system. Ontario has a couple of employees. The rest of the provinces are just part-time for the most part. They don't all support the same number of sports we do. We're unique in that. We're pretty open to any sport. We've just added hockey in the last few years, ice hockey. So we're pretty open to adding other activities and supporting them. Anything that gets our members being physically active and taking part in sport or recreation is a good thing for us.
Right.
So it is a lot different across the country.
Yeah.
It really depends where you are. It'd be beautiful to have it the rest of the country. But
Be a lot more competition.
well, there would be more competition. We'd build our pool of athletes in some of the sports. There's big gaps in certain provinces at the moment. And some provinces obviously focus on different activities. Saskatchewan, it's mostly curling and golf. Alberta has goalball and tandem cycling and yoga and a few other things. In BC, we have athletes taking part in almost every sport. So it's a bit of a different focus for us. We do have to spread it out a bit. So some provinces focus all their activities on 1 or 2 sports, which is great for those 1 or 2 sports, but it does leave other sports kind of with a gap and not having a real development system there. So you see athletes from BC dominating certain types of teams, and athletes from other provinces dominating other types of teams. It seems to be the luck of the draw almost.
So what do BC athletes kick butt at? What's our number one sport?
Right now, our number one sport probably is goalball. We have half the men's national team is based out of BC, and 1 member of the women's team. And so the men, there's 3 out of the 6 are from BC, and 1 out of the 6 is from, in the women's side, are from BC. So that's 25% of the national team from BC. That's pretty good. And we have junior players that have played the national team as well. We have a junior national goalball team every couple of years that competes. So we've always supplied athletes to that.
So are these the same athletes then who are heading down to Rio for the Paralympics?
Yeah. In fact, the team officially will be announced this coming weekend. And they'll be heading off to Rio to the Paralympics, which start in 17 days, it looks like. All 3 of the men have been on they all participated in London at the Paralympics, and one of them actually was in Beijing 8 years ago as well. So they've got some good experience. They're a big part of the team. At some tournaments, you'll see all 3 BC players starting. So we do have a big part of that in the national program. And the women's athlete has also been at the Paralympics before. So this is the second time around for her. We do have a track athlete going from Salt Spring Island in the shot put. We did have a track athlete, but he didn't qualify this year. It's getting a little tougher, and the standards have gone up, and there's only so many spots, unfortunately, for blind athletes to get on the national team. So he's not going. There's 1 swimmer going as well from BC in one of the blind visually impaired swimmers. So we have a pretty good representation going to Rio. Seems to be, that's kind of what the average over the last 12, 16 years.
Now, there's been some controversy around this year's Paralympics. One, the doping scandal in Russia, and for some reason the Paralympic athletes were excluded rather than the main Russian athletes, which I thought was a bizarre choice for the Olympic Committee to make. Are you allowed to comment on that?
I can comment, sure. It was bizarre. It's actually, because in most countries, the Paralympic Committee and the Olympic Committee are separate. In Russia, they actually are too. So and then they have the swim association is different from the track and field. So it was an interesting. I came from a track and field background, so I know what the Russian able-bodied athletes were doing and not doing, and they're not the only ones that were cheating. But it's a big step for the IPC to take. To ban the whole team, and that's still up. There's a hearing today, actually, or tomorrow, the 23rd, and that may be overturned. And it has a direct impact on our goalball women, for instance, because the Russian women's team is in the Paralympics, and they would be actually someone we compete against. If they're not there, it might be, does someone sub in for them? So it's a bit of a mess, unfortunately. So every games always has something to come up. It was interesting that able-bodied, the IOC, the track and field athletes were banned, but that was by their association. So other sports let some of the Russians in. I have a feeling that might happen in the IPC too as well. But it's it's a really tough call.
Yeah, it just seemed like they were being scapegoated for something that probably didn't have much to do with them at all.
Yeah. There hasn't been a lot of evidence of cheating in Paralympics, but there is cheating for sure, and there's drugs and there's other stuff. So that's we can't be blind to this or blind to that fact, but didn't mean to come out that way, but it's true, and it happens, right? And so even recently, some powerlifters were banned. A couple of days ago, a couple of powerlifters were banned. So some of those sports do have some, but they're not necessarily Russian, right? Mm-hmm. It's a bit of a. It's going to be interesting because it's not going to help the Paralympic athletes in Russia who are clean. And there are, I'm sure a lot of them are.
Yeah. Do the Paralympic athletes go through the same drug testing that the rest of the Olympians go through?
Yep, absolutely. Our goalball team, in fact, was just tested at a training camp 2 weeks ago. They showed up at the door of the training center and said, time to produce a sample. And so they were tested. They've come to their door recently, knocked on the door and said, we need a sample. Canada has a really stringent testing policy and procedure. I've seen it a number of times. We've done a few things to make sure that it's equitable for our athletes. If you can't read or see what's happening with your sample, you need to have somebody there to make sure that if you can't see them pouring it, you want to make sure someone's watching for you, because there's a lot of things in drug testing and dope testing that they requires the athlete to okay that it was done properly. So there's some things with blind athletes we have to manipulate around and make sure it's equitable and fair to them. But we definitely have testing. All the athletes who go into Rio have been tested multiple times, and there are a lot of athletes are on medications that sometimes show up on drug testing, and they need them for their health, they need them for their eye condition or whatever. So there's certain, there's forms for people like that. There's a procedure for them that they're still allowed to take those, but they have to get an exemption. So they're pretty stringent about it. And so we feel pretty confident our athletes going are going to be okay. In all sports, not just goalball, but track and field, swimming, wheelchair basketball, you name it. They all have to face it.
You mentioned goalball a couple times. Can you explain what goalball is?
Goalball is the one-team sport. It's not an adapted sport. It's its own sport that was designed for blind and visually impaired athletes. Late 1940s, after World War II. In Austria and Germany, there was a lot of injured soldiers. Vision was an issue, obviously, through the injuries. So they wanted them to be active and supported and physically healthy. It's important to be physically active. So they invented the sport. Developed the sport. It's gone through a few adaptations. It is a game that's played in a volleyball-sized court. It has a net at each end that's 9 meters by 9 meters long and 1.5 meters high. It's played with a ball that has bells in it, and it's thrown along the floor because a ball with bells in it, if you throw it in the air, you don't hear it. So we have to make sure the ball hits the floor a number of times. The athletes are blindfolded. They wear eye shades so that everybody's on an equal basis. So those with some vision, it would be an advantage to see the ball. So we blindfold all the athletes, including the ones who don't have any vision, and we know they don't because they don't have any eyes for different reasons. Everyone wears an eye shade, and it puts it on a level playing field, hopefully. So they throw the ball, and they're trying to get the ball past the other team into the net. It's played 3-on-3, so 3 players on each team throwing the ball back and forth. The ball weighs 1.5 kilograms, made of rubber. It still hurts if it hits you. They throw it at up to 70 kilometers an hour, the men,
Wow.
and the women throw about 50 kilometers an hour. So it's a very competitive sport around the world. It's one sport that it can be played almost anywhere because the equipment is fairly inexpensive and it's easy to set up. And it's a great activity for kids because it's a team sport. And it's an activity I can introduce into the school system because they put on eye shades, and so their classmates can play and learn what it's like to play blindfolded.
Right.
Yeah. So it's the one sport. Canada's qualified both teams for the Paralympics, and we have every time. Our women have won it a number of times. They won in Athens, and they won in Melbourne or Sydney, in Beijing, not in Beijing. So our women and men both are all highly ranked in the world, and we're competitive.
And here we should probably give a shout out to Pastaroga employees, Vivian Foray and Carrie Anton.
Absolutely, yes.
Woohoo!
Yeah, they all both played, and they both went to the Paralympics, I believe.
Yeah, both came home with gold.
Yep. So it's a game that's played across the country. There are places that are stronger, like BC and Alberta right now, and Ontario is fairly strong on the women's side, and then Nova Scotia actually is quite strong in the men's side. They're really strong. They've won the last 2 national championships. Unfortunately, beating BC. But we won the 3 before that. So yeah, it's a great sport and activity for people to play, and we do have groups playing. They practice. Well, right now they're practicing 3 times a week as they prep for the Paralympics, but in the winter, they play once or twice a week, and we have 3-hour sessions with training, and we have kids playing, adults playing. It's a great activity at all levels. Some play for fun, some play to be competitive.
It's pretty much the opposite of dodgeball, right? You've got this weighted ball that's being flung at high speed, only this time you're trying to get in front of it.
Yeah, you're actually trying to stop the ball.
That's right.
I always tell them not to. They can stop it any way they want. I just don't recommend the face.
Yeah.
And in 16 years, I've only seen it happen once or twice, so it's pretty good. None of the students I've ever taught it have ever been hurt. The odd teacher's taken a couple of shots.
That's probably by design.
Yeah, I warned them. Maybe you shouldn't play this, but it's a lot of fun. There's skill and there's strategy and all. It's like every sport. There's all kinds of pieces to it that you can develop. You can run whole lesson. We have lesson plans online, in fact, for teachers to structure whole sets of lesson plans around it. I've seen schools run intramural programs on it, so. It's kind of cool for the kids. Someone who's low vision or blind, it's one of those things that they can bring to their class. It's kind of neat.
Cool. So if you're looking for these resources, where do you find them?
Well, we have our website is, of course, under review again. Canadian Blind Sports has the lesson plans. They're free. You can download them for free. BC Blind Sports website does have information. We're unfortunately not the best in the world at updating it, but we're working at it. And there's lots of contact information that's available through our office where if someone's interested in a sport or an activity, maybe, they live in a community that they want to try weightlifting or go into a yoga class, there are some things we can help them do. We're not going to run necessarily our own yoga class, although that has been tried. We might go and help the teacher adapt their program for that individual. It's a lot easier for us to go out to the people. Our population is spread out, and the chances of having enough people to run it, for instance, a swim program specifically for blind, we're just not going to get them enough in one area to do that. Mm-hmm. So it's better to be in a regular club anyhow. It's good to see, kids can go out swim with their regular classmates. That's one of the things that with some adaptations, you can take part with your friends, and I think that's important. we do have other, golfers, things like that. They go in regular clubs, lawn bowlers, they all belong to their hometown club and take part in competitions there, as well as our competitions.
Yeah, we had a Aroga best ball golf tournament once a few years back, and as I recall, I lost to Ryan.
Well, there's world championships for blind golf. In fact, we've had Canadian championships twice in the last 4 years in BC. At one of them, I did play the sort of the exhibition round before the tournament, and I managed to lose to a totally blind Israeli golfer by 27 shots.
Wow.
Yeah, he was pretty good. There's lots of different sports there, and golf is certainly one. It's definitely, you need someone with you to help find the ball, but sighted players need the same thing, so not much different.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a world championship next year in Creston. We're going to have a world blind golf championship in Creston. So
nice.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
So do you guys have a calendar online of different sports and where they're being held?
There is. Yeah. We're trying to keep it updated. Things change quickly. But certainly just by calling the office, we can let you know if there's something coming up. I can tell you in 3 weeks, the golf championship or the sort of lawn bowling national championships is being held in Ladner. We just had a provincial championships last week in Nanaimo. There's goalball training camps, and we haven't got a tournament this fall, but we will have one in March. And we're hosting the nationals next year again. It's been a few years, so we'll have a national senior championships in New Westminster, I believe. Hockey is really growing, and we do run a partnership with Hockey Canada, Blind Hockey Canada, where we help put on events as well. And they do have a tournament this fall in November 18th weekend in Langley, the Langley Event Center. There's going to be a Western Canada blind hockey tournament. I think you'll see Carrie Anton out there.
Yeah, I heard she was coming.
Actually, she's coming this weekend.
A bunch of people I know are going to be there.
Yeah, they're having something this weekend as well. So there's a whole Western Canada hockey. So there are, people, of course, welcome to come out and see what's going on and find out if they're interested in taking part at some level, whatever level they choose.
So let's talk a little bit about Courage Canada.
Blind Hockey Canada.
Blind Hockey Canada.
Yeah. Well, Courage Canada was a group that started a number of years ago by an athlete in Ontario, Mark DeMontis, who had lost vision in his late teens. He lost lots of vision, and he needed to. He loved hockey, wanted to keep playing hockey. He did a skate program across the country, a roller skate program, where he skated across the country to raise awareness. And then when he landed in BC, we kind of got hooked into him, and we started doing learn to skate programs. BC had the first program, taking school kids and taking them out the ice to get them involved. Just learning to skate, so eventually you can play hockey, right? It's a big part of hockey is being able to skate. So Courage Canada did that for a number of years, and then recently, and developed the interest in hockey. It started to get pretty good, and they hosted a couple of national tournaments in Ontario, where this year there was 80 players from across the country and from across the United States as well, playing hockey for 3 days in the old Maple Leaf Gardens. So hockey is becoming very popular. So this year they formed a Blind Hockey Canada, where they are now responsible. So they've moved away from Courage Canada and set up their own association, so they can work with Hockey Canada itself and become the governing body for blind hockey.
Right.
So now they host tournaments. They hosted an Eastern Canada tournament a number of weeks ago in Ottawa. They're going to host a Western Hockey Championship in the fall here, November, in Langley. And then in March, there'll be a national tournament again in Toronto, where this year I think they're really expecting about 100 players. And in fact, it's gotten so popular that they've got 2 divisions. One is a competitive division, because there's some pretty good hockey players out there, and it's really not fair to have them competing against some of those people who are still learning, or vision is a bit different. So we have two levels of hockey tournaments, a recreation component and a competitive component. So there's enough players to really make it go now. If you watch it on YouTube or online, it's phenomenal, the skill levels that these athletes have developed, some of them. And we've got all sorts of levels of vision out there. right from the goalies, who have to be totally blind. So they're a B1, which is a category we use in sports. The goalies are totally blind, and then the other players, as they move up, defensemen are low vision, and the higher vision athletes, usually the forwards. We do have a special puck that's been around for a couple of years now. It's bigger than a regular rubber puck, but it has steel marbles in it, so it's made of metal, so you can hear it quite well. In fact, it's so big it's not going to fly through the air as much as well. It's a little bit heavy, so you don't want to take a slap shot because it's going to cost you $100 for a new stick. So that tends to slow them down a little bit. But it's there's a few adapted rules. The net's a little shorter. It's a foot shorter, so that makes it, because if the puck's in the air, the goalie's not going to hear it as much. So to make it fair, they made the net a little shorter. And you do have to pass the puck once you go past the blue line, just to give the goalie an opportunity to hear the puck, find out exactly where it might be.
So there's no center line breakaways?
Not too many, no. Not that they don't get called back. So yeah, it increases the passing. Definitely makes it a part of the game. So there's special rule. I mean, that's really the only special rules. There's no body checking intentionally. There's been the occasional collision, but you're wearing pads, right? You're wearing hockey pads. It should be good.
Oh, it still hurts.
It still hurts. Oh, you know what? And I tell kids, like, a rubber puck hurts when it hits you, right?
Absolutely.
So this metal puck can hurt, but as long as you're padded, it should be okay. It's not going as fast as rubber pucks.
No.
And the goalies have the full face shields and stuff, so it's safe. There's going to be injuries.
Oh, for sure.
That's
it's sport.
Yeah, it's sport. They're not devastating injuries.
Yeah, I understand the boards are real hard.
They are. They really are. Even if you're wearing a helmet, they come up on you real fast.
Well, that's what pads are for. And you hope your teammates will warn you a little bit.
Yeah, well, if they're watching.
Well, there's that too. I mean, and that's one of the sports, we do need sighted volunteers. Like, a lot of sports really do rely on a sighted volunteer. And that can be a spouse, it can be a sibling, it can be your neighbor, the guy down the street, whatever. Sometimes it's helpful to have someone there, to get you there. Mm-hmm. But some activities do need sighted support. So we do focus in helping them as well. I mean, they're a big part of our athletes' lives, so we make sure we actually target them before we target the athletes sometimes, in terms of financial support or logistical support as well. And that's how we run it.
Right. So how many athletes do we have going to the Paralympics?
BC has 5 athletes that I know of, unless someone snuck in. We had a couple more that were just on the edge. 2 more, another thrower just missed making it. And she'd actually been to Paralympics before, but she came out of retirement to try and make it. Liliana, but didn't quite make it this time, but almost did. So that was pretty impressive. And we have a 400-meter runner who didn't quite make it this year as well. So it's just, the standards have really gone up. I mean, the sports have changed over the last 25 years, for sure. People are getting more specialized. It used to be you could do one sport, one games, and another sport, another games. That's a little bit harder to do. Just because there's so many more people taking part around the world that the standards to get into the event are pretty hard. Mm-hmm. So that's just the nature of the growth of Paralympic sport, right? It's not handed to you. You definitely have to go and earn it.
Do we know how many athletes from Canada are going to Rio?
In blind, there are 3 track athletes going. In swimming, there are 2, I believe. And in goalball, we have 12. And there's 2 judo athletes going, and 2 tandem cycling teams are going as well. So we got a pretty good sized chunk of the team going. The judo girl's pretty new. One of the girls, she's quite new, and she's doing really well. So there's going to be lots of activities for us to watch.
And if you do want to watch the Paralympics, are they being streamed again this year?
We think so.
Yeah.
But obviously, the Rio is going through some financial issues right now, and we do know that goalball wasn't being televised at all. But they're hoping there'll be some kind of streaming. It was in London. Certain countries could do it. Canada hasn't committed the funds to do it, so I don't know. It's going to be the popular sports like wheelchair basketball and wheelchair rugby will be more chance you're going to see them than some of our sports, unfortunately. Track and field's usually pretty good, but we do have a couple of athletes that are quite highly ranked. So, and they've won medals before. They've won medals at World Championships. So, Jason Dunkerley's back for must be about his 5th games, and he won medals last time, and he's certainly ranked again this year. So we're going to have there'll be people to watch it. Unfortunately, it's going to be a little bit of dial hunting, trying to find that elusive. I don't know if AMI is going to try and do something. I'm not sure, but it's not getting supported as much as it was in London. I think that's the reality of it being in Brazil.
Well, even watching the regular Olympics that just ended, CBC's coverage this year was awful comparative to years before.
Yeah.
So I don't know what changed, but...
Well, it was funny because they actually had way more channels, but trying to find what was on at what time was just... It really was just spinning the dial, keep looking for, hopefully something showed up. I just didn't find it they didn't communicate what was on, changed, and you really did have to go hunting the stuff. I mean, there was lots of stuff, but it was so hard to find it.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if it's more of it was televised, but I think you'll see more in Tokyo than here, than Brazil, just the reality of it.
Yeah, you alluded to the funding shortfall for this Paralympics. What's the story behind that? Because aside from the fact that there is one, I don't know what's caused it or.
Well, part of the deal with the IPC going into the same city as the IOC, so they follow them like 3 weeks later, is that the facilities are there and everything's set up. So the countries hosting it have to really buy into it. And with the financial issues in Brazil, it sounded like from the last few statements from the IPC, International Paralympic Committee head, sort of Craven, they were $60 million short, which is a lot of money. So
that's an awful lot of money.
I'm not sure if we should be telling them to take jars of peanut butter with them, the athletes. But it's reality. In the end, it'd probably be fine, but it's not going to look. London was an amazing experience. The support the English gave to the Paralympics was unprecedented in terms of spectator support, people coming out and watching all the events. Every event was full. And their prices were cheaper than the Olympics, for sure. But they still filled those buildings. There were 60,000 people watching 12 hours of track and field every day.
Wow.
And that's, the swimming pool was full. Our goalball arena, goalball's used to 25 people watching. There was 4,000 to 5,000 every day watching the games. So I don't know. Judging by what I saw in Rio, even the able-bodied, the Olympics, the stands were empty.
Yeah, there were a lot of noticeably seats. Yeah.
Really empty. And I don't know what's going to happen down here.
Right.
I feel for the athletes, and it's a big event for them, and they're just still going to perform. But it's an opportunity for people to see that level of competition for a para-athlete. So we hope it'll be okay. We're going to see. London set a very high standard.
Yeah.
And then Vancouver did as well with 2010. Right? The Winter Paralympics were so well done here that they're hard things to follow. I think Tokyo will do a good job. That's not for 4 years. So.
Yeah. Got to get through this one first.
Got to get through this one first. It's going to be an amazing event. The athletes are going to go and they're going to get their best opportunity to compete, and that's a special time for them to do that. It's like anyone. Anytime you get to travel with your friends and go into competition and go to a new country, and I know goalball has been very important for us, but it's very important in Brazil. They won the last Paralympics, so they've spent a lot of money and a lot of time developing their team. They're going to be one of the top teams there, both men and women. So.
And do the athletes, do they raise their own funds to get down to Rio and do all their training? Or is that covered by the sports?
It's covered by Canadian Paralympic Committee, their flight there, and a bit of a training camp before we go. So everything down there is covered. The only thing we have to pay for as a sport, so Canadian Blind Sports, for instance, is their their uniform. We have to buy our own competition uniform. They do get all the team stuff for Rio from Canadian Paralympic Committee.
Right.
But all the training during the winter and last year and the travel and the qualifying is supported. Their athletes actually spend a lot of their own money doing that.
Wow.
It's just the reality of sport is that you do have, our competitions. Our team went to Lithuania this year. They've been to Sweden. There hasn't been enough competitions in North America. But even North America is expensive to get to. Our nationals were in Quebec City, and it cost $1,500 to send some of the athletes from BC.
Right.
Per person. That's a lot of money to. It's expensive. I mean, that's the same for everybody in every sport. So it's not. That's just the reality of it.
And I guess they could go out and look for sponsorship as well from different companies.
They do. I mean, it'd be ideal. But companies want exposure, so it's kind of you're caught in the middle, right? You get exposure. There is some support, but it's sporadic, unfortunately.
Right.
But they keep trying, so hopefully we'll get some good publicity from these games, and they do it well enough that we get some support. So there is support from national level, but it's not nearly enough, of course. Yeah.
So we need to blind Sidney Crosby and get him playing blind hockey.
We do need the blind. We need him in goal ball. We need the superstar. Well, we have a couple guys. Well, a couple guys can throw pretty hard, but you might need that superstar who can throw 80 an hour instead of 70.
Is there just one goalie in goal ball?
Goal ball is 3-on-3, so everybody's a goalie.
Oh, so everybody's a goalie.
Everybody's a goalie, yeah. Or hopefully they're a goalie. And, it's a game that changes. Now there's a lot of bouncing shots. Used to be straight shots. Lots of different things that happen.
Yeah.
Curve shots, It's like any sport. You can adapt. You have to modify depending on who you're playing, things like that.
Right. What about winter activities?
Goal ball is actually a sport we play all winter. So we support people doing cross-country skiing. A lot of the administration part of any blind skiers is done through Disabled Ski Association of BC. They're ones that are responsible to the national bodies for skiing, but we do help. We take kids out snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, downhill skiing, or help them go with their class, or provide some things like sighted guide training. That's one of the things that we do, is making sure that the guide for the person has some knowledge of what to do and how to guide somebody, whether it's in sport, which is one thing, but also just that off the field of play. Like, how do you what's the proper way to guide them through the village or get them to the training site? I mean, there's certain things you want done, so to make it safer for both. So we do provide some training for that as well. I mean, that's a big part of it for the winter sports. And then hockey, of course.
Right. So the winter would be like the curling, the skiing.
Curling, yeah. Curling we don't administrate, but we do have curlers.
Who does the curling?
BC Blind Curlers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they have a four groups around the province. They have a Western Canadian Championship. They have a Canadian Championship that they take part in, and they qualify through it. So it kind of ebbs and flows like a lot of sports. Sometimes you get a lot of people interested, and it changes, and they try something different. So there's a lot of crossover between curling and lawn bowling. You'll get the same individuals doing both. So I know there are groups out there. So curling, it's great to take the kids out and let them try it. Because if you don't try it, you don't know if you like it or not. Right? It's like anything.
So who would I contact if I was interested in couch surfing?
In couch surfing? You can talk to me, because I've mastered that in the last 2 weeks during the Olympics. I can almost watch two TVs at once.
But say you're some tubby blind person who's sitting on the couch, binge listening to podcasts and eating Cheetos. How do they get in touch with you?
Well, I think they need to come out and play hockey. Or tandem cycling is always good. Get out there and do something physically active.
He's looking at you, Ryan.
Yes, they have my number.
I do remember a bike going to Ryan's place.
Yeah, that never got used. Never got used.
Well, it's never too late.
That tandem cycling is something I do want to do. I just need to find a rider.
Yeah,
a pilot.
And see, that's with our sports, our activities. That's the thing. It's having someone. In a lot of cases, like tandem cycling, is having someone to pilot the bike, and that means someone's committed to carrying that bike. The car's got to be big enough. But it's having someone committed to spend that amount of time with you, and that's not easy. Right. Yeah, and that's a lot of our sports.
Especially not him.
Wow.
Ouch. Zingers.
And,
Felt that one.
And like we do get people want to run, right? And it's finding a guide runner. It takes a while. They have to be able to get along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
And the personalities, it's ideally would mesh, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those little extra added things that we need to take care of.
So do you have, like, if I was interested in tandem cycling, do you have a list of people interested in being pilots?
We do get people calling all the time. It's sometimes they're from Victoria, which doesn't help us from Vancouver.
That's right.
But there are, and I can guarantee you this fall, as soon as the Paralympics over, we're going to get some phone calls from people who will see it on TV and going to want to do that, which is great.
Yeah.
But it's making the match. Some sports do the same to us. They call us up and say they'd literally like to have a 6'2" woman who's got really good physical skills to be part of their rowing boat,
right?
Or their quad. Well, we just don't have a closet full of those people, and so it's a process, right?
Yeah,
and sometimes it's a long process,
right?
But as long as we can expose, especially the kids now, to more activities, at some point in the future, they may want to try something.
Yeah.
It might not be this year. It might be not 5 years. But eventually they're going to want to do it. We hope. And it's physically good. It's good, right? It's a good thing to be physically active.
Yeah, and I think, I can't speak from somebody who's been born blind, but I would hope that the parents are pushing these kids to be active. Just like our parents pushed us to go outside and play.
That's a good point. We with the CNIB, they host we do a 3 times or 4 times a year, sometimes early intervention weekends where the parents are brought in to be with their child who's might be fairly young, like could be or had just been within their first year of life, even up to 4 or 5 years old. They're brought in and exposed to a lot of different things. Exposed to teachers who will tell them what to expect in the school system. And so we're fortunate that we're able to go in and talk about the physical part of it, the physical activity. We've got a DVD that we produced a number of years ago that was with some support from the Olympic 2010 group that explains to the parents and gives them some ideas on what to do with someone who's very low vision or losing their vision or didn't have vision, how to get them physically active at a really young age, because it will pay off when they get to the school system.
Right.
The more you need now, you need it more now than any time, right? So, and there's some pretty good buy-in. I'd get a lot of phone calls from parents whose kids are now starting the school system. Can you come and help our class? Because they recognize the value of physical activity that's meaningful. It has to be meaningful. It can't be made up. It has to be meaningful. It has to be fun. It has to be safe, of course. But I really find the parents are actually pretty good now. They're really buying into it.
Well, there's a whole social aspect to sports as well. It's not just the physical activity, right? It's the whole social.
Absolutely, it's it's the biggest payoff for me. Is someone doing something with their peers, whether it's kicking a ball around or climbing in the playground. Their peers need to know they can do it, and they need to know that they can go do it with their peers. So the more skills we build them when they're younger, the more successful, the safer, the more fun it'll be for them.
Right.
It's like any group of people. You're going to have some that are interested, some aren't. Some are good, some aren't. Some people are good athletes, some aren't. It doesn't matter if they're blind, deaf, or whatever activity, whatever it is. There's still that same spectrum of people. But we got to find out. We got to make sure they find out what they can and can't do.
Yeah.
Not everyone who plays hockey is a really good skater. They just like playing hockey, right? So they, you got to give them some of those skills so they can do it. Or running. Running is no fun.
No.
If you can't.
That's no fun.
unless you can do it efficiently, right? Like, why would you want to do it if it hurts all the time? So the more you can teach someone who's young, the more fun it'll be, because they'll be able to do it efficiently. So that's a big part of our role at this moment, is really getting right from before they're in the school system, in fact, so they can get out there and do something and enjoy it. And, at some point they come out for our teams. Already we've got some skills. It'll be easier to teach them the skills needed for that sport. right? Whether it's golfing or curling or lawn bowling or tandem biking. If you've got some of the skills developed when you're really young, it's going to pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Simple things like throwing a ball are really difficult to teach to someone who can't see. So we have ways and things that we can do to help make sure that happens. Then it's a lot more fun.
Right. Well, then, if that's it, how would people get in touch with you, Mike?
Through BC Blind Sports, we have a regular number. Are you guys have something you can put?
Yeah, we'll post
We'll
this in
put
the
it
show
in the show
notes.
notes, but
Yeah.
why don't you say it now?
Okay, it's 604-325-8638, and you can ask for Mike or Susan. We're the ones, the programmers, so you'll talking to us. Website, www.bcblindsports.bc.ca, or you can email us at info@bcblindsports.bc.ca. That's certainly one way of getting a hold of us, for sure. And we can get back to you and give you some information, tell people what's going to happen, when the events are, come out and watch. Sometimes it's fun to bring the kids out to watch, because then they know that there's something that they're going to be able to do in the future, right? It's giving some of that, making sure that families know that there is a potential for their student or their child to do something.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be left out,
Yeah, exactly.
right? That's what's important.
And if you're not in the BC area, then of course you can always reach out to Google and Google blind sports in your area, and you will probably turn up all kinds of stuff in your own local area.
Well, hopefully, if not, Canadian Blind Sports office is actually in our office at the moment. So you could Google Canadian Blind Sports and you'll get one of our phone numbers anyhow. And they can provide you information or put you in contact with somebody in your area for sure. Each province does have someone out there. So the more we can send to them, the better it is for them. So they'd be quite happy to hear from anybody. Excellent. Nationwide.
So there's no reason to sit on that couch binge listening to atbanter.com. You can get out and do something.
All right, so Steve's going to be my pilot on my tandem bike.
That's
Well,
right.
I was actually sort of thinking about that. While the weather's good, we should give it a
While the weather's good. So we got 3 weeks left.
Exactly.
Come on. I might have a bike you could borrow.
Yeah, excellent.
I got a bike rack on the back of my car.
Excellent. Well, we keep saying we're going to do the grind too.
Yeah, let's do the biking first. Get some conditioning in.
Yes, I need the
before
conditioning for sure.
Both climb Grouse Mountain.
You go ahead and do the grind. Let me know. I'll wait for the top. I'll wait at the top for you.
Yeah, have the cold beer ready.
For those of you who don't know, the Grouse Grind is a infamous local trail up Grouse Mountain, which climbs, 1,300
Somewhat 1,300 feet. Yeah.
In 2 point some odd kilometers. And I have one buddy who can do it in just about an hour.
Yeah.
For me, it takes, a weekend.
Yeah, it takes me about a week to recover.
Yeah, I know I have no idea what I'm in for, but it is something I do want to
Well,
do.
you can do the Coquitlam Crunch, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's almost the same. That'd be a good warm up.
Is it?
Yeah. It's got stairs.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, there's stairs on that one, and it's a little bit wider trail, little better marked.
Maybe we should try that one first.
Yeah, a lot more people, but there's no gondola to take you down from that one.
That's the
Oh, is that
unfortunate
right?
part.
Yeah,
So there's no beer at the top?
You've got to walk down, and I don't believe there's a pub at the top.
No, there's no pub at the
Jeez.
top.
Yeah,
Wow, I'll have to reconsider that one.
yeah, indeed.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, our dragon boat teams are always looking for people. I mean,
Oh,
the
I
season's
know.
kind of dragging to an end right now, but they definitely look for people to take part. It's a great activity as well. And we do have teams in Kelowna and Victoria, a couple in Vancouver and one in Langley. So they're out there. One coming to a place near you, hopefully.
Excellent.
Cool. All right, well, then we'll wrap it up. How can people get in touch with us, Steve?
I don't know, Ryan. Why don't you tell us?
I always got to tell us.
I know, because you're the only one who gets it right consistently.
All right. Well, if you want to reach out to us here at AT Banter, our website is AT Banter Podcast. No, it's not. Our website address is www.atbanter.com. Steve, what's our email address?
Our email is atbanterpodcast@gmail.com.
And you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. That's it for now, so thank you for listening. Mike, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, signing off, I remain not Rob Minot.
And I am still Steve. Wow, I've been drinking already. I am Ryan Fleury.
And I'll be Steve Barkley in lieu of Ryan being Steve Barkley.
That's all for now. Bye.
I don't know why I was going to say I'm still Steve Barkley.
This podcast has been brought to you by Aroga Technologies. Visit Aroga Technologies online at www.aroga.com. That's AROGA.com. Music provided by bensound.com.